Hey guys, Dave with First Place Auto Parts, and we're at 2022 SEMA, and we're at the ARMO booth. And man, there's a lot of cool cars here, but there's one car in particular that caught my eye. And today we have the builder and the owner, both Jeff and Tim, and we're going to ask them a little bit about their car, some of the inspiration, and look at this car a little bit more in detail. So Jeff, tell me about this car. What was the inspiration for this build? What was the genesis for it?
So I'm a Chevy guy, GM guy at heart, and own a lot of other cars that Tim has built for me. And I told him, I says, Tim, I want to build a Roadster. And he says, okay, find one. Well, not knowing that Chevrolet didn't build many Roadsters, I went out looking for one. And 2 years, finally, I found this in a garage in Connecticut as a running, driving car, and brought it home.
And it was a short process, right? The build was it happened pretty quickly?
Well, it sat for a couple of years while we were developing some designs. Eric Black did some amazing work for us. Originally, we were unsure about fenders, no fenders, and all of that. And so once they started building, a short 8 years later, it's here.
And I think we were talking. You build by the hour, right, Tim? So that was that was music to your ears.
Yeah, 8 years by the hour. It's a great deal.
What can you tell us about the car? Look, visually, it's very appealing, but I'm sure there's a lot of tricks that you've done to this car to make it look like this.
Yeah, no, there certainly is. And as Jeff mentioned, starting with Eric Black doing our rendering, that really was the foundation for the build of this car. You know, without Eric and landing on a traditional spot, I think Jeff and I kind of bounced around some different ideas, but the final piece that Eric gave us was the landing spot that you see today. And so that was a huge foundation. On top of that, working with the Roadster shop, I think what people miss on this car is what you see underneath, or what you don't see underneath when it just sits on the ground. The car sits so low you can't see all the work, though. So the custom chassis that the Roadster shop built for us, one of the things that, you know, as Jeff mentioned too, that we talked about being a fendered or a fenderless car. Well, with fenders, you can hide a lot of stuff. Well, this being a fenderless Roadster, there's nothing to hide. So if you look at this car, you don't see any shocks, you don't see any coilovers. This is a cantilever suspension system, so all of that is mounted inboard of the frame rails. And when you look this car from underneath, you get to see all of those fun things because there's a lot going on.
And it's fully functional as well. A lot of the cantilever stuff is done for clearance, but you know, obviously there's a lot of things that go into play to make it work. This is a fully functional car that you can drive comfortably.
Sure. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
What's the powertrain?
So it's an LS base. It's Dart Block and Heads, or LS Next. Keith Dorton from Automotive Specialist, he and his son built the engine with the help of Alan Johnson. We worked with Alan because Jeff, one of his mandates was he wanted an 8-stack fuel injection system. And as you look at some of the aftermarket systems that exist, they all work great, but they have fuel rails and exposed wiring and all that. And Jeff really wanted a system that looked like an older mechanical injection system. So Alan, we enlisted Alan to design a system, and everything is all hidden inside of an open plenum, and it works and functions really well with a fast XFI system.
Wow. And braking is it drums?
No, four-wheel disc brakes. So the Roadster shop, when they designed the chassis, they did basically a disc brake cover system that evokes some of the older traditional looks. But there's a set of Willwood brake systems behind each wheel, and so it stops really well.
So this thing's kind of almost like a chameleon. I mean, what you don't see is exactly what makes it that trick.
Yep. And built with a traditional look, but there's some tech behind it.
What color is the car, Jeff?
That would be bro blue.
Bro blue? Is it an official color? Or is that like
it is now?
Yeah. So it's funny, when we were working with Eric, you know, all your initial renderings are done in just grayscale; they're just black and white. And we had never really had a discussion about what color should the car be. And Eric's final rendering came out blue. I don't know why he decided to throw that on there, but it stuck. When we saw it, we're like, man, we don't need to search for a color or try that.
Wow.
But we sprayed out some different colors for Jeff and did some mixes, and he landed on one, and this is it, Road Blue.
It's a beautiful combination. Jeff, I got to ask you, the car is super clean. I didn't see a single chip on it. What are the plans for the car?
Well, right now she's kind of a show queen, so I'm not sure when we'll take her off that pedestal.
I got you.
We wanted it to be drivable and streetable, and everything in the car functions extremely well. I mean, you're talking a very small car with 650 plus horsepower. It does extremely well.
With what, 4-inch wide tires?
Yeah.
How much?
And so I'm really jonesing to drive it like it's designed. But right now, we get to show it and keep it shiny.
I'll tell you what, everybody here, when they walk by this car, just about breaks their neck, you know, looking at it. And to your point, what you don't see is what makes it so incredible. What you do see is insane, but it's the stuff where it's buried that makes it that much deeper. It's one of those kind of like an onion. You peel back, and the more and more you look, the more you see, or you think you see, or you wonder where those parts went.
Yeah,
and it's truly a stunning
The
car.
idea was to have a traditional hot rod. Obviously, we built it for the America's Most Beautiful Roadster show with their specs, kind of, you know, that idea.
Right.
But if I was back in the heyday of hot rods, but I had CNC machines, I had ferro arm scanners, and I had the Craftsman that I have here, and maybe Dad's checkbook, this is what we'd have done.
Well, guys, that wraps it up. Until next time, keep the hammer down and keep it between the guardrails.